Welcome to the full moon forecast with astrologers Justin Crockett, Elzie, and Elizabeth Muschett. Hi, Justin. It's great to see you.
Hey, Elizabeth. It's good to see you too.
Thanks for coming back and
Yeah.
doing the full moon with me.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome full moon. I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay, let's get to it. So we'll start off how to get a hold of Justin. JustinCrockettElzie.com is his website, and justin.elzie@gmail.com is the email address. And you can reach me at liz@alightpath.com, or my website is alightpath.com. So we're starting out with the Sagittarius full moon. It's also called a flower moon, happening on May 23rd at 6:53 p.m. at Pacific Daylight Time and 9:53 Eastern Daylight Time. The moon's at 2 degrees of Sagittarius in 55 minutes, and the sun is opposite at 2 degrees Gemini in 55 minutes. So the full moon is a mutable fire sign, that's Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, rules the 9th astrological house. Sagittarius is adventurous, philosophical, optimistic, independent, about foreign travel, and optimistic. And the caution is unrealistic, reckless, detached, and temper. Would you like to add anything?
No, I think that you got that covered. There's a couple other words I could use for the shadow part, but we'll talk about that when we get to the moon.
Okay, if you'll lead us through the Nakshatras, please.
Yeah, so the Nakshatras or the lunar mansions is actually that portion of the sky in the zodiac where the moon and the sun is going through. And so when we look at this is kind of where we're drilling down a little bit more into the zodiac sign and what the specific stars are that are near there, and the archetypal concepts and myths around these stars. So the sun here in Gemini is actually, though, in a nakshatra in the Jyotish or lunar mansion called Kritika, and it's in the fourth pada. There's four sections to each nakshatra or lunar mansion, kind of like, as we would say, like deacons, but they're all divided up into four sections or fourth padas. And this is in the fourth pada, and this particular star that's associated here where the sun is at is called the star of fire, and the ruling planet is the sun. So this is a really good place for it. The ruling deity is Agni, the god of fire, and the symbol is the blade or the razor or anything that cuts. And so the keyword theme for this is really about this whole concept of burning, purifying, cutting ties to bring about new dimension or new way of being. And so it's about cutting, letting go of something, and then the door opens an opportunity to manifest something new. And so it's sort of this archetype of the phoenix rising from the ashes. If you can think about that, this sun has the archetype of the phoenix rising from the ashes. And when that happens, we burn or purge or let go of something here with this. And usually this is also a nakshatra that's associated with good ethics and morals. Usually there's some ethical dilemma for people that's put in that is part of this. Then the moon, which is opposite, is in the nakshatra lunar mansion of Anuradha in the second pada. It's called the star of success. And the ruling planet here is Saturn. And the ruling deity is Mitra, which is the god of partnerships or friendships. So this is related to dealing with relationships. When people have this, they want to be friends with everybody. And so that's why the symbol is the triumph of archway. And the keyword themes here are friendship, but it's also dealing with conflict in relationships, interplay in relationships, and how we resolve conflict through analysis. Because the Namsa, or this particular pada is ruled by Virgo, and the keyword is research or analysis. So the way that relationships or conflict is resolved in relationships is through analysis. And so, as we get into the Sabian symbols today, you're going to see these concepts come out again. And so, it's amazing, as you know, Liz, I'm always bringing up about how the lunar mansion concepts here in the Nakshatras seems to a lot of times same keywords, same concepts as the Sabian symbols for these.
Well, that's great. It really gives this new moon or the full moon this amazing energy.
Right.
Can you tell us about the tradition of where the Nakshatras and the lunar mansions came from?
Well, it goes way back. I don't have that information right here, right now, but we can talk about that on another show. That's a pretty deep, complex subject.
Well, I was just kind of looking for those that don't know that this is more of an Eastern astrology tradition.
But there is a Western astrology tradition going way back of lunar mansions within Hellenistic and astrology and that. So there was a lot of overlap and overlay there. I will also say something about this, that we're going to, when we get into the aspects with the planets today, we're going to see these concepts come out when in dealing with what Mars and Vesta and some of the planets are aspecting today. These concepts of relationship and resolving of conflict is going to come through today.
So they're all supporting each other. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So the quote today is, "What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly," and that was by Richard Bach. And in this one, we have the ascendant or the rising sign at 9 o'clock. If you're looking at a clock, is 26 degrees Gemini, and that's circled in purple. And the ruler of that is Mercury. Then the midheaven is at the top. If you're looking at a clock, that would be 12 o'clock, and that's 25 Aquarius encircled in green. And the ruler of the midheaven is Uranus in Taurus. And then the sun is circled in blue and is Gemini and also ruled by Mercury in Taurus, in yellow, and the moon's ruler is Jupiter in Taurus. So we have a lot of Jupiter or Taurus energy going on here on this in this chart.
Yep. We're definitely going to talk about that today.
So the Sabian symbols were channeled in 1925 by spiritualist medium Elzie Wheeler with the assistance of astrologer Mark Edmund Jones in the San Diego area at I think it was Balboa Park, but I couldn't tell you that definitively.
And he was also an occultist. Actually, he I think actually considered himself more of an occultist than an astrologer, in looking at his writings. So
yeah, I'll have to update that information.
Yeah. So we want to start with for the audience, we always start with the ascendant, because we look at the ascendant and the midheaven before we look at the sun and moon, because it gives us context to the bigger picture of what the chart is trying to come across with. So first we look at the ascendant here.
And that's Gemini 25, a gardener trimming large palm trees. The intellect tends to expand wildly in many directions, so pruning can be necessary.
Right. And then Gemini 26 is about frost-covered trees against winter skies. And the keynote here is sort of this looking at essentialization and removal of all superficialities of existence, kind of looking at one's limitations and essentialization, kind of looking at where one's boundaries and limitations are.
And then Gemini 27 is a gypsy emerging from the forest wherein her tribe is encamped. Appearances leave behind tribal earthbound existence, repolarization. And
So
today,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Well,
go
we
ahead.
use
Go ahead.
the three symbols that pretty much represent past, present, and future of the area that we're looking into, is why we have three that we're doing today.
If I might say, Liz, I don't know how you. I'd be curious what you think about this, but that whole concept we were talking about, how there's this dynamic of letting something go, burning something away, and then a new way of being. We kind of see that already here in the ascendant, because I always see here this gardener trimming large. It's about pruning something. We have to sometimes clear the hard drive so we can allow for new things to happen. And so we see a whole concept or story here of the gardeners getting rid of stuff. It's cutting, right? It's cutting away and then it's reevaluating where it needs to be, limitations, and then it now emerges to a new way of being. The gypsy emerging from the forest, she's come away in this period where she was regenerating, or off alone in the forest. Now she's rejoining the collective in a new dimension. So we see that a little bit here. What do you think about that?
Well, I like that, what you said, but it also reminds me of kind of like fall time when, the leaves are falling off and then it's winter. And so it's like the roots are, all the energy goes into the ground and is like percolating below the surface. And then the third one kind of reminds me of spring. Okay, now we get to create and build now.
Right. And that's why I was saying, goes back to those Nakshatras, which is about purging, cutting, and then a new way of being opens up as we resolve things.
I love the phoenix rising. I can really relate to that. That's for sure. And then we have the Sabian symbol for the midheaven, 25 Aquarius. And you want to start this one?
Sure. The first one, Aquarius 24 degrees, is a man having overcome his passion teaches deep wisdom in terms of experience. And the keynote here is the constructive use of which difficult past experiences can be put as examples for those who are still striving to overcome their passions. So it's this communication of life experience and teaching that wisdom and carrying that on.
And then Aquarius 25, a butterfly with a right wing more perfectly formed, the capacity to develop the rational and fully conscious aspect of the mind ahead of normal evolution. Um, Transformation of emotional energies.
And then Aquarius 26 is a garage man testing a car's battery with a hydrometer. And the keynote here is skill in applying knowledge of natural laws in the solution of everyday problems resulting from the life in our technological society. Here we have analytical mind. You might remember we saw that word earlier, analysis. Analytical mind to check the operation of machines, and a symbol of mental efficiency. So what do you think about these three, Liz?
Well, it's like I would say that it's important to share our wisdom and knowledge with other people, um, because it can help people change and have more information. Um, might give them a new idea of how to do something. And then the last one with the garage man having the testing equipment, it's like we have instruments to test things, but it's like we might have an experiment that we want to do. And if we didn't have the equipment to test things, we might not be able to find um, new answers. And so it's like, really stretching that mental mind.
Right. I also like that this. I'm going to go back to the Nakshatras, how this relates to communication and the relationships, but also we're looking here at applying knowledge and to solution to problems with relationships. And so there is definitely a mental knowledge thing going on with this particular moon as well. The Gemini, of course. Right.
Well, and yes, and it goes back to communication, which the Nakshatra spoke of. So I love it.
Yeah.
So, and then the Sabian symbol, 2 Gemini for the sun. And we start with Gemini 1, a glass bottom boat reveals undersea wonders, a new dimension of reality.
And Gemini 2 degrees is Santa Claus basically flirtatiously fulfilling stockings, hanging in front of the fireplace, and this is basically this aspect of innocence in the personality.
And then Gemini 3, the Garden of Tuileries, I'm not sure, in Paris. The formation of collective ideals through the application of reasons in order to newly discovered aspects of nature, formalization.
So, so if I may say one thing, that last one there about the whole application of reason and order, the formalization of ideals, we're still dealing here. I think this also helps us or agrees with that midheaven about the whole concept of intellectual knowledge and looking at issues with a lot of reason and order. But attacking it from a child's perspective with innocence.
Yes, and to me, like the glass bottom boat revealing the undersea wonders, it's like the phoenix rises and now sees things differently. So that really goes along, in my opinion, with that. And and then just making things beautiful, a garden in Paris, and it's very formal, but gardens are beautiful.
Right.
And then we have the Sabian symbol for the moon at 2 degrees Sagittarius. You want to start?
Sure. So Sagittarius 1 degree is retired Army veterans gathered to reawaken old memories. And here we have this the will or the understanding to affirm the value of struggle within civilizations. It's a very philosophical way of seeing why humans struggle.
And then Sagittarius 2, a white-capped waves display the power of wind over the sea. The mobilization of unconscious energies under the pressure of superpersonal motives. Subs- oh my gosh. Through rhythmic intensity. Can you help me with that word?
Yeah, subtilization. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a long day. I know. I hear you. And then the Sagittarius 3 degrees is two men playing chess. The keynote here is the transcendent ritualization of conflict and interplay. So it's a way of like, for example, we do sports, and sports is a way of ritualizing and letting off steam and resolving conflict in a healthy way. So again, I think this really speaks to sort of the understanding of the philosophy of relationships as we're working in the collective to try to resolve conflict. You know.
Right. And, here's retired Army veterans that are reminiscing about the past or their memories. And it's wasn't the midheaven one, passing the wisdom and knowledge. So it's like,
Yeah.
these ones could be doing the same things. And then
Yeah.
the power of wind over the sea. It's like the longer the wind blows, the higher the waves can become. So it's like to have some destruction, but it helps, to move things. The wind blows it away, the waves, move things around. So I
Right.
like that. And then a game. Cool. Okay, so a little bit about Sagittarius. It's a mutable fire sign. The full moon is about end, release, adjust, prepare to move forward. Mutable is flexible and completing energy. Jupiter is expansive and abundant. The moon has an emotional component, and it's with Sagittarius, so seeking truth and knowledge. The Gemini sun is duality, and Mercury rules the sun, communication, short trips, neighbors, and siblings. Anything else?
No, I think you got it covered there.
So we have the Sagittarius full moon with an opposition. So it's just not the sun and moon that are opposite each other. Do you want to dig in?
I'll let you start.
Okay, with the moon, we have Pallas Athena. And even though they're in two different signs, they're still really close to each other. So Pallas is in Scorpio and the moon is in Sagittarius. And that is opposite the sun in Gemini and Venus and Jupiter in Taurus. So the moon, it's like, to me, with Pallas there, on an emotional nature, you can tap into your wisdom and your strategy with having the moon conjunct Pallas Athena. And then opposite that is the sun in Gemini and Venus and Jupiter there. So um, I like the Jupiter and Venus because that's both the benefics, the beneficial planets in the zodiac with the sun. So it feels like some um, positive direction can be taken at this time, but it's like opposite. So it's like I would say tap into your emotions and your wisdom. How about you?
Yeah, and I'm excited to when we're going to talk a little bit here about Mars and how these other aspects are coming in, because I think this lays out sort of the theme of relationships here, because that those last degrees of Scorpio, we know that Scorpio is learning about how to deal with emotions and relationships. Cancer is about emotions itself. Scorpio is about emotions and relationships, and of course Pisces the emotions and the subconscious, the collective, right? So here we see, I think it's interesting, back to that moon, which is um trying to resolve conflict, and it's and analyzing things. That Palace here, we are able to see patterns in some of those emotions within relationship, and then of course the concept of the sun being manifesting and rising from the ashes there of the phoenix. We see Jupiter there in Taurus with Venus, and so it's really, that's a powerful conjunction where it's really, we're able to manifest our desires, Venus being our desires, and Jupiter's conjuncted in Taurus. So we're looking at the value in manifesting our desires of what we want within our relationships.
And with the moon, I want to add that um, Sagittarius wants to find the truth. So being true and honest with yourself, and Scorpio isn't just superficial stuff, it's like deep stuff. So it's like get real with yourself.
Yeah, and there's an ethical. I like how you bring up about the whole concept about. I think you said something about right or wrong, or beliefs and philosophy here, because that's a very ethical, moral moon there. There's an ethical thing going on here, philosophical, ethical thing, like you said.
Yes. Okay, I want to go back to this just for one moment because Venus will be move into Gemini 6.5 hours after this full moon. So Venus is moving to the next sign very quickly, and then Jupiter will move in 2 days later. So, they're almost there, but not quite, but they're headed there. It's like they're on their way. They just haven't arrived yet. Okay, now we go into the mini grand trine. And mini grand trines are made up of sextiles, which are 60 degrees apart from each other, and trines, which are 120 degrees apart from each other. So a sextile would be half of a trine, basically.
Mhm.
So the moon is sextile to Pluto, and then Pluto is sextile to Neptune, and Neptune is sextile to the Sun, Venus, Jupiter. So it's tying all that energy in, and then the Sun, Venus, and Jupiter are trine back to Pluto, and then Neptune is trine to the moon. That's a lot to say.
So I in the Neptune being the planet of the collective here, and then of course we got Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth and change. I think this is just mirroring what we're talking about there's this easy flow of energy to be able to manifest or change things within the collective with what we're wanting to do right now, basically.
Right, and two of the outer planets are included in that, the Neptune and the Pluto. So it's like, it's like this cooperation that's happening for everybody. So to me, it like just feeds back into those Nakshatras and the Sabian symbols.
And I think I don't know what you think about this, but also a lot of times because this is the outer planets so involved here, that this could be situations that are outside of our control that actually push us to actually have to change here, because it's that means bigger things outside of our control there sometimes, I think.
Right, and lots of times, the sextiles and trines or a mini grand trine, it's just it's not so noticeable as the squares and the oppositions.
We're gonna cut to those.
Here we come. So we're gonna start with the cardinal T square, and I always think of them as adjustment and change is required. So we have Vesta in Cancer square to Mars and Hygeia in Aries, and Mars and Hygeia in Aries is square to Ceres, and then Ceres in Capricorn is opposite to Vesta in Cancer. How about you jump off on this one?
Yeah, I think this is representative of. So I think what we're being shown here is the tension that's going to happen here. Where's that fire and that earth and that tension and that emotional water going to take place? Vesta representing sort of the hearth, the fire, the collective, and it's in Cancer, and it's of course opposing Ceres there, how we're nurtured in the collective. And I think the outlier here is the Mars, which is right next to Hygeia, the hygiene of that, the warrior that, and we know when Mars is in Aries, it's aggressive. And even though it doesn't show on here, that the sun here is actually semi-squaring Mars and Hygeia, and at the same time semi-squaring Vesta in Cancer. So we know what happens when you mix Cancer and Aries. There's this water fire mix, right? And there's a minor hard aspect here between the Sun and Mars and the Sun and Vesta. And I think it's all around. There's all this tension here with the minor hard aspect there, and these hard aspects. It's telling us something's going on in the collective here that are difficult with our aggressiveness, what we want. There's an ego thing, as you've put out there, in the Sabian Symbols with the Mars and Hygeia, and it's about the hygiene of the Mars ego and Aries, and it's just a fire and water mix here.
Yes, exactly. And then Ceres is about grief, but it's also about nurturing in Capricorn. So, like doing the responsible thing or making efforts, to have the hearth and home. And that's Cancer is a very nurturing sign. And then it's square to that Aries energy that just, kind of wants to like tear it up, so to speak.
Right.
And so it's like, you can feel like you're being pulled in three different directions. So it's like be gentle with yourself and make sure that you nurture yourself and your relationships. And everything's going to be okay. It's like just take a deep breath and you'll get through it.
And I think it goes back to the sun and moon. I think that's informing us of a technique here. This is when there's dynamics and relationships, and we are evaluating the value of those and what values and ethics and morals, and maybe there's some that we need to purge and cut or cut ties with, and we have to purge and cut ties with, and then we can find a new way of being. And I might, if I can, bring out a particular chart we were talking about before the show. It's interesting is that an archetype of this actually shows up with Prince Harry's chart, this sun and moon, which is about cutting ties, purging, and then a new way of being. Actually this sun and moon is within 2 degrees of his lunar node. So it's sort of an archetypal story here that we can use it as an analogy or an example of what this sun and moon is representing.
Well, that's a great example. And, Mars perhaps could just give us that energy, that passion, that drive to, make the changes that maybe we've been resisting.
Yep.
Okay, now we have the Thor's hammer. And Thor's hammer is two points in an astrology chart that are square to each other, 90 degrees. Both of those points being sesquiquadrate, which is 135 degrees. So that's a square and a half. So we talked earlier about the Vesta being square to the Mars and Hygeia, and they're sesquiquadrate to the moon. And we're talking about a full moon here. And Thor's hammer, it's like Thor, could throw a lightning bolt or, like really do something intense. And so it's like really asking us to work something out. And the other part I want to say is the moon moves really fast, so it's going to be out of this aspect pretty quick. So that's kind of a nice thing that happens with this. But it's focusing on that moon. So our emotions,
Right.
and it's like, just keep your cool. But usually it's an internal um friction or something with inside. So it's like maybe if something upsets you, you know walk it off, or think about it, and just don't react immediately.
And this is where I was saying that sun is actually, um, you know, right between that Mars and that Vesta. That's the semi-square. So it goes, that sun is sort of right there off of there. It's there's an ego thing here. And I think it definitely speaks to, it really does highlight the importance of Vesta and Mars in this chart. And they're like, they're so important, and what they represent, and how it's going to create dynamic action here.
Well, and perhaps like the Nakshatras said, that's like the resolution and conflict for the moon, and then the sun is the phoenix rising. So let it, you know, burn off or roll off your back.
Right. Yep.
So, did you have anything more to say about the aspects?
No, 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 no. I think you've got it covered.
So now I want to talk about the lunar phase family, and sometimes referred to the lunar gestation cycle. There's 4 lunar phases: new, first quarter, full, and last quarter. They complete a monthly lunar cycle every 29 and a half days. Pessin discovered that these phases play out in 9-month intervals. The phases occur in the same sign and degree, or about the same degree. Each moon family can reveal a pattern and an unfolding storyline over time. So the new phase is like going places, and the first quarter can be like packing your bags, and the full phase could be enjoying the trip, and the third quarter could be back home and now paying the bills. So we're at the full moon phase, and that's highlighted in yellow, but this phase started in November 23rd on 2022. So if you journal or keep a calendar of any kind with some notes on it, you might know what you were doing or started around that time. And it's like now you can reevaluate it. Maybe it's going strong. Maybe you haven't even put much effort into it. It's like, do you want to still keep it on your list to pursue? Or maybe it's like, I'll put that on the side burner, and maybe I'll look at that again in 4 or 5 years. Or maybe just let it go altogether. And then we have a yearly lunar phase. So we're at the full moon phase, and the new moon in Scorpio was on December 12th of 2023 at 20 degrees Sagittarius. So you can always think back to that time period and see maybe what you were putting in motion and how that has come along. I know for myself, things that I started back then are really rolling now. How about you?
Same here.
So, do you want to sum up what we talked about?
Well, I think this is a great full moon to finally make some changes when it comes to um, something that we need to cut ties with, and to see a new way of doing things. So this is sort of a purging sun moon combination here. But because of that Mars Vesta, it could mean a lot involved around relationships and evaluating ethics and morals. And because of that Sag moon, I think that some of these situations we may come up with may be an ethical dilemma or a moral dilemma or something, would be maybe where we're working and they don't seem too ethical, it doesn't match our ethics or values. And so there may be something that comes up here where we have to make a decision based on a philosophical belief or idea, as you were saying. And I think Jupiter highlights that. And I think could be some good benefits that come out of it.
Right. And just being truthful and honest with yourself, I think will be really important to evaluate relationships and, what do you go forward with and what is time to start, releasing.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So the upcoming episodes are the astrology forecast for June of 2024 with Justin, Elzie, and myself.
Yeah, we're doing that together.
Yep. And then the archetypal symbols on top cosmos, the Gemini new moon, which happens on June 6th. And the episode will be live on June 2nd at 1 p.m.
And we're doing that with Zoom in ahead, you and I.
And then Chiron Hygeia conjunction, the Chiron asteroid series. This is a new series that Justin and I are going to launch in the next couple weeks.
Yay.
So we look forward to having you join us for that one.
Yeah, if you want to know more about the asteroids, we're going to talk about those. And it just so happens, as you pointed out, Liz, there's an important conjunction coming up with Chiron and Hygeia that we're going to talk about. It's kind of important.
And then the Astrology Star Sisters series, Talk Over Tea, is growing. And I'm doing 3 episodes a month. So Venus Star Point in Gemini with Marcia Bouchard, Saturn Retrograde Reality Check with Madam Simon, Summer Solstice with Sue Minahan, and Neptune Retrograde Revise and Remove the Glasses with Dabney Lawless. So I look forward to having you join me on all of the new episodes coming up. And Justin, what are you doing?
Well, I do a Mars monthly forecast, and we're going to be doing a lunar forecast weekly and an Ask the Astrologer series. And I'm currently doing a podcast with Michael Bartlett, and it's called We're the Relationship Guys. If you remember in public radio, the car guys, we're the relationship guys. And so we pick a chart and we go through the whole aspects of relationship between them. And so that's kind of a really great new series we've started.
Yeah, so you can follow Justin on Instagram, and the Relationship Guys is great, so you should all check it out. So again, to get a hold of Justin, it's justincrocketelzie.com, justin.elzie@gmail.com, and myself, my website's alightpath.com, and you can email me, liz@alightpath.com. So any closing statements or comments?
No, just thank everybody for joining us today, and I hope everybody has a great full moon, as we've all seen the aura,
yeah, the
solar flares.
Yeah, that was great. So thank you for tuning in today. We appreciate all of our followers and thank you for supporting us. Please consider subscribing to my channel, leaving a like, and leaving a comment below. Thank you.